Good morning. Welcome to Bible study. If you don't have your Bible, if you would pause this video and go and get it, because we're going to begin our time together practicing finding stories in the Bible. Today's Bible story is going to be from Exodus. You may remember Exodus is the second book in the Bible, Genesis and Exodus. So the first thing we need to do when we're looking up a story in the Bible is to find the book of the Bible. The book is Exodus. So I will flip and I see Genesis, and I'll keep turning pages until I find the book of Exodus. Can you find the book of Exodus? Now, the Bible is full of different books: Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy. They all have different names. And then when you get to a book of the Bible, each book has chapters. You can find the chapters by looking at these big numbers. Chapter 1, Chapter 2. Today's Bible story begins in chapter 15 and continues into chapter 16. So can you turn the pages until you find Exodus 15? Good job. Now, when you look, and if you take a minute and look in your Bible, you'll also see in with the words, there are small numbers. These small numbers are verses, and they help us find exactly where our story begins. Our story today is going to begin in Exodus 15, but we're going to look for verse 22. In this Bible, I will have to turn the page and find Exodus 15:22. Have you found it? A few more things that help us about the Bible is they have descriptions that tell us what's happening in the story. And we can see above where today's story begins, bitter water made sweet. And then if we go down to Exodus 16, we see bread from heaven. So today's story is going to be about food and water. So as we get ready to read the story, I want you to think about a time when you felt really hungry or thirsty. Can you think of a time? Before we read today's story, I want you to look at and remember pictures from the stories we've studied so far to help us get ready to hear today's story. God was with Abraham and Sarah's family as they traveled to new places, had children and grandchildren, wronged each other, and made peace. God was with them when they made mistakes, while they worked, and when they forgave each other. Over time, their family grew so large that they became a great nation, just as God had promised. Pharaoh, king of Egypt, was afraid of the people and made them slaves. Pharaoh commanded that all the Israelite baby boys be killed. Moses' mother and sister kept him safe. God saw the suffering of the people and chose Moses to lead them out of slavery. Moses went to Pharaoh and told him to let the people go. After 10 plagues, Pharaoh said the people could leave. God parted the Red Sea so they could walk through on dry land. What's for breakfast from Exodus 15 and 16. God had freed the Israelites from slavery in Egypt, but their joy did not last long. After the Israelites left the Red Sea, Moses led them through the Shur Desert for 3 days before finding water. They did find water at Marah, but it was bitter, which is how that place got its name. The people complained and said, "Moses, what are we going to drink?" Moses asked the Lord for help, and the Lord told him to throw a piece of wood into the water. Moses did so, and the water became fit to drink. Then God came to them with instructions. If the people were careful to obey, to do what was right, and to pay attention to God's commandments, then all would be well. Not long after that, the people of Israel entered the Sinai desert. There they complained to Moses and Aaron again. "We wish the Lord had killed us in Egypt. When we lived there, we could at least sit down and eat all the bread and meat we wanted. But you have brought us out here into the desert, where we are going to starve." The Lord said to Moses, "I will send bread down from heaven like rain. Each day the people can go out and gather only enough for that day. That's how I will see if they obey me. But on the 6th day of each week they must gather and cook twice as much." Moses turned to Aaron and said, "Bring the people together, because the Lord has heard their complaints." Aaron was speaking to them when everyone looked out toward the desert and saw the bright glory of the Lord in a cloud. The Lord said to Moses, "I have heard my people complain. Now tell them that each evening they will have meat, and each morning they will have more than enough bread. Then they will know that I am the Lord their God." That evening a lot of quails came and landed everywhere in the camp, and the next morning dew covered the ground. After the dew had gone, the desert was covered with thin flakes that looked like frost. The people had never seen anything like this, and they started asking each other, "What is it?" Moses answered, "This is the bread that the Lord has given you to eat, and he orders you to gather about 2 quarts for each person in your family. That should be more than enough." Moses told them not to keep any of it until morning, but the people didn't listen. They saved some until morning, and it became filled with worms and smelled bad. They learned that every morning they should gather only what they could eat that day. However, on the 6th day of the week, everyone gathered enough to have 4 quarts instead of 2. When the leaders reported this to Moses, he told them that the Lord had said, "Tomorrow is the Sabbath, a sacred day of rest in honor of me. So gather all you want and bake or boil and make sure you have enough for tomorrow." The people obeyed, and the next morning the food smelled fine and had no worms. A few of the Israelites did go out to look for some bread, but there was none. Then the Lord said, "Moses, how long will you people keep disobeying my laws and teachings? Remember that I was the one who gave you the Sabbath. That's why on the 6th day I provided enough bread for 2 days. Everyone is to stay home and rest on the Sabbath." And so they rested on the Sabbath. The people of Israel called the food manna. It was white and tasted like wafers made with honey. God instructed Moses to keep 2 quarts of the manna so that future generations could see how God fed them in the desert. The Israelites ate manna for 40 years until they came to the land of Canaan. Now, let's wonder about today's story. First, can you imagine traveling in the desert knowing you're about to run out of food and water? I wonder how Moses felt to know that these people were so hungry. He had been their leader and helped guide them out into the wilderness. I wonder what it would be like to have to trust God to provide food, enough food for every day. Can you imagine going out and finding food on the ground to eat every day? Can you think of a time where you have asked God for something that you need? As you continue to think and wonder about this story, let's take a look at today's picture and put it together with all of the other pictures to remember the stories we've learned so far. Thank you for joining us for Bible study. We'll see you again next week.